Working in a veterinarian clinic, I fell in love with the most adorable little Yorkie named Archie. He belonged to an overly loving family who would do anything for him, so as you can imagine, he was extremely spoiled. Archie frequented the office for a variety of health concerns that only worsened due to the fact that his owner took him to Arby's for a roast beef sandwich like a couple times a week. The doctor repeatedly warned the owners that this was the harmful root of his conditions and it would only lead to his inevitable death. The family did seem to heed the warning and cut down on his junk food intake, but they still felt the need to occasionally treat him to his favorite snack. It appeared that good progress was being made on his dieting. However, one day, after being indulged by his prized treat, Archie suffered a major heart attack and passed away. It leads you to wonder why this happened and why it wasn't prevented. It clearly was a concern that was not taken seriously and went unaddressed for entirely too long and led to very unfortunate consequences. Not every overweight animal's situation is this extreme, and my intention on sharing this story is not to depress you, but to enlighten you on why it's a good idea not to overindulge your pets with food. The Association for Pet Obesity Prevention is a community of concerned veterinarians, and they report in an online article from HCI Books that approximately 35 million pets in this country are overweight. I want to persuade you to understand that this is one of our main responsibilities as pet owners because of the health problems that it leads to, such as damage done to the bone structure, the animal's heart, and the overall quality of life. Let's begin by discussing the destruction that obesity can cause to an animal's bone structure. The excess weight that a pet carries will put unnecessary stress on their body, which would not naturally be there. This extra stress and pressure is harmful to the animal's bone structure and results in inflammation, breakage, as well as other permanent conditions. So what does an overweight animal look like anyway? Let's take, for example, my friend Sophie here. She is 7 years old and she's clearly overweight. She has excess pressure all over her body from her weight, and this definitely puts extra stress on her joints, which will lead to stiffness or worse. She is currently dieting and has lost some weight, but she does have a lot more to go before she'll be an ideal size. Arthritis is a degenerative joint condition, and it is by far the most common issue that overweight pets deal with, and it can be heard even by the cracking of joints as the animal moves. Those pets who cope with this condition suffer from aches and pains, which only gets worse as they age if the pressure is not relieved. In the Dog Owner's Home Veterinary Handbook, it tells us how heavy dogs are more likely to experience symptoms because of the extra strain placed on their ligaments and joints. Another familiar disorder that oversized animals can be afflicted with is hip dysplasia, which can be hereditary but is also related to those who have excess weight. According to PetMD.com, when hip dysplasia is developed, the hip joint will actually dislocate and then gradually deteriorate, leading to loss of function of the hip joints. Over time, this will eventually take away the animal's ability to walk, and that will severely interfere with their quality of life. Now that we have a clear understanding of how excess weight can damage an animal's bone structure, let's also take a look at how the heart's affected. The surplus weight that a heavy pet carries burdens their heart in exactly the same way that it does their bones. The strain stresses the sensitive organ, and slowly, it cripples it over time. In a book about how to help your animal lose weight, called My Fat Dog, it states that obesity is one of the contributing factors to acquired heart disease, which typically damages either the heart valves or the muscular walls of a dog's heart. Eventually, untreated heart disease leads to heart failure, where the heart becomes unable to pump adequate blood through the body. Being the most important organ in the body, it is critical that the heart works properly in order for the rest of the body to function as well. Therefore, if a heart is not running well, then neither is the rest of the body, and the animal will be left with much discomfort. There is something that can be done about this health risk. According to the Encyclopedia of Natural Pet Care, the best way to prevent and help treat heart disease is to feed your pet a well-balanced diet. Not only will your furry friend thank you for the good care, but also you'll have far fewer vet bills. Keeping these health concerns in mind, let's now examine the big picture, which is the pet's quality of life. If you think about it, when an animal's young and healthy, they have energy to play. But once they grow older and develop issues, they become uncomfortable and sometimes cranky because they're not well. The health problems I mentioned before will leave the animal with a variety or combination of symptoms, such as labored breathing, whining, lethargy, stiffness, coughing, exercise intolerance, and fainting. Any of these signs are a form of suffering and should be addressed as soon as possible to relieve your pet's pain. An overweight animal's life is lessened in other ways, such as poor mobility, which can mean a lot to an animal. Take, for example, a dog whose main love in life is to follow their owner around. Once obesity sets in and the dog loses the ability to do what it lives for, then it is left with a poor quality of life. An experimental study was done by researchers at the University of Liverpool, in which two groups of dogs were compared. One group was on a strict diet and the other was not. In an article from Science Daily, they explained that the results showed that the quality of life improved in the dogs that had successfully lost weight. In particular, their vitality scores increased, and the score for emotional disturbance and pain decreased. This clearly shows something, that there is a connection between pain and quality of life. We are all now in a position to see how accurate feeding is necessary to keep our pets happy and healthy. Let's pause for a moment to think about Archie. Knowing what you do now, do you think his situation could have been prevented? I know his owners sure do. If Archie, like so many other pets, was properly fed, then there would have not been extra stress on his bone structure. He probably would have not had heart problems, and he definitely would have had a more enhanced quality of life. What can be done to make a difference comes after the learning process, which leads us to make good decisions for our pets and give them the life that they do deserve. It is a rewarding experience to care for an animal that depends on you, and I can certainly testify that in helping Sophie get healthy, it has been an accomplishment for her as well as for me. As our time here together comes to a close and you go home to feed your own pets, remember that properly caring for your animal is essential and it is not a choice.